Welcome back to Crossroads. I'm your host, Judy Davis. Today on Crossroads, we're providing information about services available to victims of child abuse. And we have with us today Lakeisha Smith, who is the founder of Unique Visions and the producer of a documentary on child molestation. And we also have with us Mary Whittier, who is the executive director of Bivona Child Advocacy Center. Welcome back to Crossroads.
Thank you.
During this segment, we wanted to talk a little bit more about the specific services that Bivona provides. Now, you shared with us earlier that Bivona brings under one roof all of the professionals who specialize in child abuse cases. So there's no emergencies rooms, there's no police stations, and children can speak in a warm, friendly environment. Could you share more about that?
Yes, so we're located at 275 Lake Avenue, and we have what we call a co-located organization, and it's really a collaboration and partnership with about 20 different agencies, which includes every law enforcement agency, Child Protective Services, the Children's Hospital, Rape Crisis, Mental Health Services, Victim Advocacy. So what happens is any child that's suspected of being sexually abused can come to Bivona and get their what we call a forensic interview. So they can be interviewed, they can get a medical exam, they can get counseling, their family can get support, participate in a support group, all in an environment that was built for and around kids. So what it means is kids don't have to go to the emergency room and wait 6 hours and be examined by someone that's not specially trained. They're not going to the police station where suspects are there and there's uniformed officers. They come to Bivona and get all of those investigation, evaluation, and treatment services in a very, very comfortable place. So if there is something for them to talk about, it's a more conducive environment for kids to talk about.
Okay. Now, Lakeisha, you do mention in your documentary that in the urban community that persons do seek that help, seek counseling, that they may be labeled crazy. So how did you face that possible label and still go and get the help that you needed?
Basically because it was about me. And when you find yourself going through pain and not feeling comfortable with who you are, you have to do something about it. So maybe people are not or don't have as much courage as I do, but I would encourage people to have that because there's nothing crazy about getting help for yourself. And that's the truth. Some people do still use that label, but I think it's crazy if you don't. So you have to take care of yourself before you can help anyone else. So, and that's what I did.
Amen. Now, Bivona also helps a victim walk through the legal process from investigation to the trial. Could you share more about that?
Sure. And the other thing that I don't think I mentioned earlier is we have a team of specialized professionals, so they're all very well trained to do these investigations. And while the majority of the children that we see, there are allegations of sexual abuse, we also investigate all the severe physical abuse and then all of the child fatalities. So the team is specially trained to do all three of those types of investigations. But in terms of the court process, one of our significant partners is not only the district attorney's office, but is Rape Crisis Services, and they have two what they call victim advocates that are housed right at the Bivona Child Advocacy Center, and they work with families from the beginning of the investigation and the beginning of the just as the case is unfolding, all the way through to prosecution. So what that means is they're the constant professional there, whether the case is 3 months, 13 months, or 2 years.
Oh,
it's the same person kind of walking that family and that child through the process and helping them prepare. They work very closely with our DA's office. And while the ADA the Assistant District Attorney, will help prepare them for court, and they do that a lot of times at Bivona, the victim advocate is really that child's support system. And the law enforcement person may be onto a new investigation and the child protective worker, but that victim advocate is there the entire time, which really provides a great service to those kids.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because as you know, the legal process can sometimes not be very expeditious.
Now, you do talk about that you walk with the family through the healing process. Can there be healing apart from justice? I mean, I know there's the legal system that you might be able to seek justice, but if that doesn't quite come through, or you never really get that sorry from the person who did something, can you still heal?
I believe so. Like you said, you're not always going to get that sorry, or you're always going to get a denial from that person. But you have to have a spiritual belief and getting yourself physically in shape and feeling good about yourself. So I think spiritually is the best way to go. That's what helped me get through my process, is having faith. Because at one point I didn't believe, and because you don't believe that something like that could happen to you, and is there anybody looking over you? But you have to restore your faith in order to get through, even if a person doesn't come forward and say, oh, I'm sorry. So you have to have that spiritual belief. So I do believe that you can get through if justice isn't served.
And we say that oftentimes at Bivona. I mean, Lakeisha is a great example of this. She's a young adult that's doing very well, and I think sometimes people think kids that have been sexually abused, oh my gosh, they're labeled damaged goods. They're never going to amount to anything. They're going to end up on drugs or commit suicide or have teen pregnancy and all that. And some of those things could happen. That's why professional help, maybe coupled with spiritual help, your church, some support systems are so important. But just because a child has been sexually abused, that does not ever have to define who they are, ever.
Amen. Okay. Now, we have been talking about children, but I note that it sounds like you've dealt with issues as an adult. Mm-hmm. So if there's any adults watching that they're saying, well, I'm an adult now, that was in the past, why should I talk about this now? What would you have to say?
I would say if that's the case, it's probably affecting relationships that you are currently in, and you may not realize why certain things are the way they are. And it's probably stemming from something that has happened in the past that you haven't dealt with. So if you don't deal with the issues that have you feeling a certain way, they're always going to come up. And you have to deal with them before you can move forward and be a better person. So that's what I would tell an adult, is to get that help that they need and that they probably really want, so they can move forward.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we get calls just like that from adults saying, this happened to me. And we offer those services, and there are some professionals in the community, even therapists, that we can connect them up with. So if they're out there watching, they think either A, that's in the past, I don't need to deal with it. I think Lakeisha's absolutely right. If it's unresolved and undealt with and just pushed down, eventually it comes up in lots of different ways. But if someone's got the courage and the strength, like Lakeisha's got, to come forward, we can help them also.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for the information. That's the end of this segment. When we come back from the break, we're going to learn what you, the audience, can do. Be back in a moment.